The following is a Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to the Powercat Podcast. It's the Powercat Podcast.
Welcome to a special edition of the Powercat Podcast. I'm Zach Carlson, joined by Riley Gates. We're here in San Jose following K-State's loss to UC Irvine in the first round of the NCAA Tournament. As always, we're sponsored by The Fridge, Tanner's, and The High-Low. Get into those locations and say hi to our sponsors. Riley, what are your thoughts just kind of off the bat? What did you think of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, obviously. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, right? I mean, this wasn't supposed to be the way that this team went out. This wasn't supposed to be the way that this year came to an end, because this was supposed to be the one that ended the 2013 season. Excuse me, with that LaSalle game and the way that one ended. This was kind of supposed to be the one that got it back. But look, you can point to energy. You can point to the fact that Barry Brown didn't play that much, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But all you really have to do more than anything, I think, is just kind of take a look at the stats. I mean, look, they started out 3 of 4 from the three-point line. They ended up finishing 8 of 27. You can't keep jacking up that many threes when you're that bad or when you're not hitting them from the outside. You started hot, shoot some more, and then when they're not falling, stop. You're 22 of 59 from the floor overall. Clearly, they had more issues with the zone once again. Something that we've been saying all year is going to come back to bite them. It's going to come back to kill them at some point, and unfortunately, it did in this one. And then obviously the defense wasn't quite to where it needs to be, or where it has been at times this year. It was just a very, to kind of sum up a big answer, it was a very uncharacteristic game for this team that we've seen. One that we're not used to, or a style of game that we're not used to seeing this team play. And it's unfortunate that it happened in the NCAA tournament, because it's the one place that you can't afford to have an off day.
They start the game decently. They knock down 3 out of 4 threes, and they get up 10-point lead. But then late in the second half, 6:18 left, Mac makes the 2-point bucket, and then they don't score a field goal. They miss 11 straight for the rest of the half and go into halftime tied at 30.
I'm going to say this as simply and as bluntly as you can. You can't miss 11 straight shots. And Mike McGurl, I love Mike McGurl, but some of those shots he was taking were just, I wanted to hit my head against a wall. They were awful. They were awful shot selection on a few of them. And I know sometimes the shots just don't fall, but I would have liked to see him pass the ball up a little bit more. That to me kind of set off an alarm bell, that those final 6 minutes and 18 seconds, because look, it's obviously going to be really tough without Dean Wade. It's going to be even tougher with Barry Brown on the bench, but this isn't a team that lacked leadership. This isn't a team that lacks skill. You got to have someone step up. You got to have someone make the plays, and everybody just kind of regressed, or they tried too hard. I don't know what was wrong with that offensive sequence, but to me, it just got back to what I've said a few weeks ago, is I think that this staff failed to adjust in game. UC Irvine hit them with a zone defense that was just way over the top, way too hard for them to get over. And like I said, it was always going to be this team's downfall, was somebody slapping them with the zone. So it's unfortunate that they couldn't figure it out. It's unfortunate they couldn't make adjustments, because that stretch killed them. They were up by 10. If you had gone up into the halftime with Barry Brown on the bench and you're up, 6 points, 4 points, 8 points, one of the, somewhere in there, you're in terrific position. You're confident. You're feeling good. Barry's going to come back out and he's going to get things going, and you're playing on Sunday. And then you give up a stretch of, 7-2 over the final however many minutes there, and then you let Max Hazard nail that shot at the buzzer, and that's kind of when I knew that this probably wasn't going to go K-State's way.
And really the biggest controversy, so to speak, of the game was Bruce sitting Barry Brown with 2 fouls for the entire first half, basically. 14 minutes. He only plays 6 minutes. Does he get cold sitting on the bench, and is that why he wasn't as effective in the second half?
That obviously has a lot to do with it. You can't get in your rhythm. It's kind of like what we were saying with Skylar Thompson and Alex Delton this year in football. If you're sitting on the bench, sitting on the sideline, you're not going to get going. But also, it just wasn't Barry's day. I mean, everybody has to go into the halftime locker room and cool down at some point. And then they come back out for the second half and try to get going, but they didn't do it in this one, and Barry didn't get going again. And obviously it was a lot to do to that. Look, in terms of the situation with Barry sitting, and I don't know how you feel totally necessarily, but Fitz has the column up, and then we're going to talk a lot more in depth, I'm sure, on the regular podcast next week when we get back to Manhattan after these travel plans get sorted out a little bit. But look, I'm kind of split in the middle. I lean more towards he should have played him, but Bruce is right, and when he says, people think I'm a dumbass if I leave him in and he picks up a third foul, I totally agree with him. K-State fans would have shredded Bruce Weber if he'd have left Barry Brown in the game and he picked up a third. And I was fine with him sitting for the majority of that first half until it got dicey, until the momentum started to shift towards Irvine's way, and suddenly it's a 6-point game, and suddenly it's a 4-point game, and then a 3-point game, or whatever, however that sequence went. When things start going south like that, and there's 2 minutes and 15 seconds or whatever left in the half, you gotta go to him. You gotta get him in there and trust that he's gonna, like Fitz wrote, trust that your senior is going to be smart. Trust that he's going to make plays or stay out of that foul trouble. And I think Barry would have been just fine. So it's unfortunate. I don't know how you feel, if you feel any different.
I feel like there's been a change. I think over time, 3 fouls in the first half was generally okay. Coaches were much more willing to play players with 3 fouls. Even Bruce, I don't think this seems like a very recent thing within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Very pronounced this year. Somebody gets 2 fouls. I mean, yeah, if you do it in the first, however many minutes, you go straight to the bench. Yeah, like that's fine. 2 fouls before the 10-minute mark in the first half, you're on the bench. But at some point you come back in because 3 fouls is still, you still have 2 more. You have 2 more fouls to give. You go to halftime, 3 fouls, you come back out, you're fine. You're fine. You pick up the 4th one maybe early, and maybe that's what they're trying to avoid, but what if you don't pick up the foul? Just play cautious. And you don't even have to start the second half if you're scared.
Well, and the strategy gets defeated when he puts Mike McGurl, or not Mike McGurl, excuse me, when he puts Cartier out there with 2 and he gets a third one. Then you can't claim that because it changes. And I know that he's not Cartier is not Barry, but also at the same time, I would argue, okay, if you're going to put someone in and roll the dice, why would you not put in your best player, your senior, and trust him? And you can say, oh, yeah, well, maybe we would have lost him for the second half, and then we're in a tough position. We have to try to win without him. I'd rather be in a position where I rolled the dice and not in a position where I dug a hole for myself by not playing him. I think they lost the game in the first half by doing that because then everything was just out of whack.
I think Bruce completely mismanaged the strategy of today's game. And I think that Barry should have played, and I think when you get down to the 2 fouls, 3 fouls in the first half thing, I think if Mac picks up 2 fouls, maybe sit him for the entire first half. But if a guard like Barry or Cartier or whoever, I think you play them until they get 3 fouls.
And it just sucks for Barry mentally after this game. He's got to sit on a plane thinking, I finished the game with 2 fouls. My career's over, and I played 26 minutes in the last game of my career, and I scored 5 points in my last game, and my team lost the NCAA tournament. Like, all of that's going through his head, all because Bruce tried to make a decision that he thought was going to benefit him in the long run. And look, like he said, hindsight's only 20/20. You can always go back and look at it and blame him, but I feel like even during the game, it's not. You don't even have to use hindsight. This seemed like a pretty obvious decision to everybody.
I think it'll be interesting seeing next season what Bruce's strategy is on fouls. I think it'll be much the same, but I feel like Barry should have the override there saying, look, coach, this is the NCAA tournament. I don't care. We're gonna win.
Go down swinging.
Yeah.
Look, it's we can sit here and scream about it all day. We can sit here and write everything we want. It's not going to change what happened. It's not going to change the fact that this is going to be the talking point for the next 3 weeks until this tournament's over and spring football's in full focus. So it's just really unfortunate, I guess, and overall that Barry's career had to end in this way. And really all 3 seniors. I mean, Dean doesn't play. Cam played a pretty good
decent game.
Cam had a fine game. His shots were not great. I mean, whatever his final percentage, he ends up shooting 4 of 12 from the floor, so not great.
Not
but also tough to really fault him for going 4 of 12 because he's out here trying to pick
and
up
at times
the
he
slack.
hit some key shots.
That 3 to cut it to 2 was massive. I thought they were going to win the game at that point. I really did. And I think it was pretty impressive that they were in a position to even come back and win that game after they fell down by
8 points, I think.
Yeah,
like 59,
very late
51,
in the game.
yeah.
But just crumbled down the stretch, and like I said earlier, it just sucks for this team, for these seniors, because this was supposed to be the one that did it. This was supposed to be the guys that proved it, that proved last year wasn't a fluke, that proved they were able to get out of the first weekend. And that narrative is gone from Bruce Weber to an extent. He not only beat the first-round Demons last year, but he went to the Elite Eight. He beat Kentucky, which was damn impressive. But this is now, he's been here 7 years. He's gone to the tournament 5 times. 4 of them, he's made a first-round exit. And the 5th one, he got out of the first weekend because he played UMBC. You know? I mean, now granted, they could have beaten Virginia.
Right.
They might have beaten Virginia. It's really tough to see it go out. 2 Big 12 champions, 4 seed, lost on the first day. But those are just kind of the first, overall takes from the first half. And honestly, the second half, man, I just thought they were chasing the whole time.
Yeah.
They were up at times in the second half.
And they'd go down and just take a stupid shot.
Yeah.
Like not, something early in the shot clock, or just not making the right extra pass.
I don't understand the strategy of getting a rebound. I saw it. Now it's going to sound like I'm throwing Mike under the bus. I've already done it twice in this. But he literally got a rebound right under the basket, an offensive rebound, dribbled it out, and then took a 3. I mean, that was some 2K stuff right there. Like, I would do that with my player on 2K. And I get it. It was open, but also you could have gone up and you either get an easy 2 points or you get a foul. I didn't understand it at times. I thought that they were, like you said, taking ill-advised shots, taking shots that didn't make any sense. They were rushing them, and at times they had the momentum, or it was starting to come back their way.
Yeah.
And then they would just go do something stupid and give it right back. And I'm gonna be in the camp that UC Irvine played a better game, but they're not a better team, and I think that's a tough pill to swallow.
UC Irvine themselves had plenty of possessions where they went down and took bad shots, put themselves in bad positions to get rebounds, and K-State just made a meal of it. It was easy defensive possessions at times for K-State that they just failed to capitalize,
and some very freshman mistakes at times too. Sean Neal Williams, a freshman actually, barreling into the lane and just throwing it out of bounds, and poor shot selection by the younger players at times. And it was clear to me that they seemed lost without Dean on the floor, Barry in full effect, and not really having a leader, which is weird because we've always seen this team have someone step up. We've seen this team had someone take over and take charge when somebody was struggling. Barry's had bad games before, but maybe X showed up and led the team that way, or Mike stepped up and was big, and I just didn't feel like there was that person that was willing to carry them. It just seemed like everybody was a little bit off their game, which is really tough. And I don't think this team would have gotten past the next round, whether it was Oregon or Wisconsin. Now it's Oregon, but I don't know as if they would have beaten either of those teams. But maybe they do. Maybe they catch fire and they go to the Sweet 16, and who knows? But here we are. And it's the first round, and K-State's out once again. It's not a very fun position to be in, and for the last 7 years, it's been a rather familiar position to be in, watching the round of 32 at home.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, there's no other way. I think there's a thread on the boards right now that says it's frustrating, or very frustrating. That's the title of it. So, that's just kind of the raw takes I have right now. I mean. Have a little bit more time to digest it, maybe watch the game again and get a few more thoughts, maybe more well thought out, written. But I think, just like I said earlier, the NCAA tournament is a place where you can't afford to have a bad game. Obviously, that's a given, and this just so happened to be the bad one. So it is unfortunate, but that's That's what we do, and that's just what you got to deal with at times. Not everybody gets to be happy. Only one team gets to cut down the net at the end of the year. So here's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, K-State was going to lose at some point in this tournament. It's just it does suck to see them lose in the first round like this.
Because they were capable of so much more. But everybody goes through a little bit of heartbreak every now and then, I guess. So, well, I think that's...
Is that it for you?
I mean, that's really all I've got right away right now. I guess actually I'll add a little bit more. I think one thing that at least what I'm interested to see in, and maybe some fans will be interested to see, is who takes that next step next year. We all look at it and we say it's going to be Xavier because he's the guy. He scores points. He's the long athletic body. He's the guy that just kind of seems like the natural one to step up. But who becomes Barry? Who becomes Dean? In terms of leadership, I mean, is it Cartier?
Yeah, I think it's Cartier.
I mean, it has to be, right? But then who becomes Cartier?
Mike.
Yeah.
Sean.
I guess I'm really interested to see how the dynamic of this team changes, and it's going to be a different K-State team next year because I really think they're going to start one, if not two, freshmen. I think Dejuan's going to start at the shooting guard position, and I think Montavious could start down low. I really do. And I plan on doing a little bit of a projected look at next year at some point. Maybe it's this weekend, maybe it's next week. I'm not sure. Haven't had much of a chance to think about that, but taking a look and really analyzing what might be this team's strength, and obviously it's gonna the off season is gonna be huge in terms of developing those guys and maybe getting them in the position to be able to be a starter. But I think we could see a little bit different style of team in terms of the fact that they might be relying on two freshmen to put up some numbers because you can't sit around for 3 years and wait for McCall to be consistent, and you can't wait for Austin Trice to figure it out. I mean, at some point you're going to have to go a different direction or try something unique and different. And maybe it isn't Montavious. Maybe you do stick with those guys. Maybe Montavious struggles, but my gut right now tells me we're gonna see a unique look with two freshmen on the floor and Xavier and Cartier, and it'll be an interesting. I guess it'll be interesting. Like I said, it'll be a unique challenge, no doubt, for Bruce to try to fill that.
There's going to be a lot of question marks over the next 8 months. K-State loses 70-64 to UC Irvine in the first round of the NCAA Tournament. From San Jose, I'm Zach Carlson. That's Riley Gates. As always, we're sponsored by The Fridge, Tanner's, and The High Low. Get into those places, say hi to our friends. We will see you on the full podcast sometime soon.
The Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.